just leaving.
But where?
I have to return some videotapes.
In a world where zombies, ghosts, serial killers, and vampires all exist, it's Nico, Brian, Mike, and Dustin, and they are all that stand between you and the films that could end the world. Welcome to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Podcast.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Don't Go Out There Horror Movie Review Podcast. It's hip to be square. Just a little preview of what tonight's film review is. Before we jump into it, though, let's just give a quick shout out to our website, don'tgoouthere.com. Everything about our podcast is on there, our episodes, our interviews, our blog, all of our social medias, and Mike's holding up his beautiful tumbler. We have a store. We have some merch. You drink your favorite drink out of it, sweet tea, maybe a mixed drink, get you a tumbler. But we also have social media.
Facebook. Please sponsor us for the love of God.
Or PBR. I think Dustin DM PBR.
Yep.
But we have all of our social media links on there too: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. Follow us, subscribe to us on there. We really appreciate all the feedback. We have a lot of questions and comments for tonight's film review, so it's another highly anticipated episode. I'm looking forward to it. Last thing, we have a Patreon called Blood Donors. We have a reoccurring, and we have a one-time monthly donation. We have all kind of perks, giveaways. If you want us to review a movie of your choice, check out Blood Donors. Or if you want to join the co-host or join us and co-host, we have that tier as well. Let's jump into the film review. Dustin, go ahead and announce your pick. We're excited for it.
Yeah, tonight I decided we'd go with the year 2000's movie American Psycho. This is a movie that I was introduced to by an ex-girlfriend of mine. It was like year 2000, 2007, or 2006, 2007, somewhere in there. So the movie had been out for 6-7 years at the time. I'd never seen it though. If there's one, probably the only thing that I can say that she did for me that was a positive was introduce me to a lot of movies that I'd never seen because she was a big time movie buff. Shout out to her. But this movie is a movie that I really enjoyed when I watched. I was just captivated by it and mesmerized by it almost because of how chaotic it is at times. And the acting is great. The casting is great. And, it's one of Christian Bale's strongest performances, one of his biggest breakthrough performances early in his career. And it's just a movie that I revisit from time to time because I really enjoy it. We've kind of towed the line on pure horror or movies that have horror elements in the past. So I was like, you know what? This has enough murders that we can definitely consider it horror. So I'm going to go ahead and pick it. So I'm excited to talk about it with you guys.
All right, I'll go next. And kind of like one of your other picks, Dustin, They Live, reality is pretty horrific. Like just real life things are terrifying. Like Dustin said, he didn't watch this when it first came out. I didn't either, except I didn't watch this movie until just a couple months ago because Dustin has mentioned in our group text that he's going to pick this movie and I hadn't seen it yet. So me and my girlfriend, we picked it one night and we watched it and I really liked it. And after my rewatch, I liked it even more. But just the ending, just a little too ambiguous for me, or maybe the ends they're too loose maybe, but I really like the movie. Christian Bale is amazing. And just the side characters are like, we got a big name cast. This is a great movie. Me and Dust are on the same page again.
It's about time.
Brian, you want to go next? General thoughts?
Sure. So for me, American Psycho is just okay. I don't dislike it, but I'm not in love with it either. With that said, let me explain. In 2000, when this came out, I was in high school. So besides girls, I was mostly only into slashers. I was still riding high on Scream. I Know What You Did Last Summer, Final Destination, Faculty, everything else around there. And so this movie just didn't really interest me, so I never watched it. So when I finally did get around to watching it almost 15 years later, I'd already seen Fight Club. So this to me was just, okay, well, this is just another ambiguous type movie, social commentary thing on capitalism and whatnot. And so it didn't really give me that holy shit moment that I did get with Fight Club, which came out a year right before this one did, actually. And I've talked about this with friend of the show, Matt, before. Fight Club was like so groundbreaking and almost made you feel like so damn smart that anytime I see this type of ending or twist, to me, it's just like, oh, okay. And it doesn't really have that same effect on me anymore. Now, by no means do I think it copied Fight Club or anything, because I've actually never read that Bret Easton Ellis's book that this is based on. I heard it was phenomenal. Performances, I think, are amazing in this. The story is good. I just think that the whole thing hinges so much on that ending that if that ending doesn't blow me away, then it's not like that ground-breaking type thing for me anyway, anymore. But again, I don't dislike this movie at all. If it sounds that way, that's not my intention. I think it's a brilliant movie. It makes me want to read the book more than anything, to be honest.
Real quick, Mike, before you go. So, Brian, you mentioned Fight Club. Funny story about Fight Club. God, I guess it's about a decade ago or so. I don't know. I bought the movie Fight Club on DVD. And on the same day, I bought a movie I'd never seen before that has Christian Bale in it called The Machinist.
Right.
And
Which
I'd
I
seen
will be picking, by the way, at some point.
Great movie. So I'd seen Fight Club before, but I'd never seen The Machinist. So I watched Fight Club. I came home that day. I watched Fight Club, and then I watched The Machinist. And I was like, motherfucker, those are the same movies. Like, the concept is so similar. And so it's very funny, though, that you mentioned that on this, because Christian Bale in The Machinist also in this. Yeah, it seems to be very closely tied to that type of movie to me.
Yeah, those two are even closer than this one in Fight Club, for sure.
Talk about two different body types, though.
Mm-hmm.
Talk about two different body types, and you talking about Christian Bale between those two movies? American Hustle.
Yeah.
Even when he went to be Bruce Wayne, like, the things he's done with his body is unnatural. And that just really speaks volumes to his commitment and how great he is to me.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's definitely one of the top 2 or 3 method actors we've seen.
Oh, no doubt.
I mean, I don't think there's any question about that.
No doubt.
I'd say probably 4th behind Ed Norton.
Here we go.
Ethan Hawke and David Arquette, but that's just me.
Method actors.
Oh, I thought you said meth.
No. It looks like he's on Meth and the Machinist. Anyway. Okay, so American Psycho. Look, I did not see this movie until about 5 years ago. For whatever reason, it just never. I just never got around to it. And I went again, as everyone knows, I went through a phase where I pretty much watched everything horror adjacent I could get my hands on for a good decade stretch. And I just never got around to American Psycho until about 5 years ago. So I honestly didn't have any idea about it. Like Brian, I've seen Fight Club, and I've seen, movies in that same ilk where it's very ambiguous, and social commentary is just so all over this movie, but it's in the book. And so, look, I've never read the book. Okay. I have no idea if this book is good. Some people say it's great. Some people say it's utterly boring as fuck. Those are the things. It goes into too much detail. It's too meticulous. But just on the movie American Psycho, I think the acting is phenomenal. Christian Bale is just freaking knocks it out of the park, man. And even these side characters that don't really, I'm not going to say they don't do anything, but they're kind of just like little bumps in the road of Christian Bale's character to me, where they're there, but they're not really there. If that makes sense. You really only get invested in Gene, or at least I do, as far as another character. But just to see how he plays a sociopath, psychopath, personality disorder, how he portrays the mental health side of it is really interesting and really fascinating. I mean, the character of Patrick Bateman to me is the story of this movie. It's just his character study and what he is and what that means. And again, this movie comments on the, they say it all the time, yuppie culture in the 1980s, Wall Street, young, successful, too much money they don't know what to do with, that kind of personality. They comment on that. They comment on men. And this movie was very divisive at the time because some people said it was misogynistic and some people said it was feminist. And I think that's really interesting that a movie can kind of toe that line. I think that's fascinating. I have a little bit more on that later. But again, just a fascinating watch from the standpoint of, hey, this movie's trying to say a lot, and it gives you all this other stuff. It gives you a guy that kills people. He has 2 completely split personalities, but it's really not that. That's not really the point of this movie. This movie's trying to say so much more, in my opinion. In the end, which we're going to get to in detail, but to me, I think, you know what? I'm gonna save it for the end. Now that I think about it, I don't want to give away how I feel about it, but I'm excited to talk about it, man, because to me, this is one of those movies that I'm a little nervous to cover. Not because I think it's like, I don't necessarily think it's Psycho or Silence of the Lambs or anything like that, where it's like, man, that's a daunting task. We have to cover this classic, but it's pretty damn close because it's become a cult classic, and rightfully so. So I'm very excited to talk about it. And by the way, this is the second movie. This is the second best movie with Reese Witherspoon and Josh Lucas because Sweet Home Alabama is an elite film, pal.
Amen. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
But I agree with you, Mike. This movie was intimidating from a standpoint that you're getting kind of Patrick Bateman doing some kind of mundane things while he's giving some really good dialogue. Yeah. And it's not real easy to do a scene-by-scene note when the guy is just doing crunches, but he's giving like this epic speech at the same time. It's like...
Absolutely.
So I'm really counting on you three to
it's going to be tough.
Nail the details down. I'll just do my best to lay the outlines.
One of the harder films we've done to take notes on, in my opinion. Just as far as, there wasn't horror comedy because I have a hard time taking notes on a comedy for whatever reason because it is dialogue heavy as well. But there's not a whole lot that happens because even the kills you don't really see. You just get, splatters and stuff like that, which I like. That's fine. Fun fact, Christian Bale, the only person to play a Bateman and a Batman. You're welcome.
That's true. One more thing before we get into that. I want to let everyone know before we do this, because I might forget. Do not watch the sequel to this. This movie does not have a sequel. This is a standalone film, and we'll leave it at that. So,
what do you mean, Dustin? You don't like my American Psycho 2? I'm Bill Shatner.
Shout out to Bill Shatner. Shout out to Mila Kunis. Damn, Jackie, you should not have made that movie. It was an abomination. So for all the good that my ex-girlfriend did by showing me this movie, I broke up with her after she showed me the sequel.
By the way, since I don't think I'll get to say this because she's not in a whole lot of horror, Mila Kunis, call me sometime. Since we're here.
Reese Witherspoon called me.
I actually just uploaded that TikTok to our YouTube. I think it's got like over 600 views already.
Nice.
Y'all ready to jump into the scene by scene?
Let's do it.
All right, let's do it. The film starts with opening credits with like blood drops and a title card. We see a big knife cutting meat and then a fine cuisine prepared with an upbeat violin song. We hear a waiter telling the table the specials. Now we're at Patrick's table with his colleagues. He tells Craig to cut out the anti-Semitic remarks. They all drop their credit cards to pay the bill. Now the men enter a nightclub and we hear Patrick insult and tell the bartender he wants to kill her after she tells him the tickets don't work anymore. It's cash only. Now we get a voiceover from Patrick. He tells us where he lives, his age, he's 27, and his morning routine. He does crunches, 1,000 of them, and stretches. He wears an ice mask if his face is puffy. He tells his choice of shampoo, body scrub, face wash, aftershave, etc. There is an idea of Patrick Bateman, but there is no real me, only an entity. I am simply not there, he says, as he removes his face mask. His secretary tells him his appointments, and he has her schedule reservations for lunch and dinners. He now tells her to not wear that outfit again. She's prettier than that. He now watches Jeopardy. Patrick and his fiancée are taking a taxi to dinner. She's talking wedding ideas, and he's listening to music. He's very mean to her. He doesn't quit the job he hates because he wants to fit in. The two make it to their table with others. He now narrates on the people at the table. He reveals he's having an affair with Evelyn's friend. Bryce brings up the issues in Sri Lanka, but Patrick brings up bigger issues such as nuclear arms, terrorism, world hunger, racial discrimination, civil rights, and equal rights for women. Patrick is at the ATM now and begins to walk home. He stares at a woman and says hello as they both wait on the crosswalk signal. He's at the dry cleaners now arguing with the owners and threatens to kill the lady over his filthy sheets. Victoria walks in and she asks for a lunch date, but he blows her off and leaves for his lunch date. Patrick is on the phone now with Courtney. He's begging for a dinner date at Dorsia. He tries to call and get a reservation, but fails to do so with porn casually playing in the background. He and Courtney are taking a taxi, and Courtney is passing out asleep as they sit down for dinner. He lies and says they're at Dorsia, but they're at Barcadia. He tells her what she's getting to eat. Next day, he's at the conference table with his co-workers. Lewis compliments his suit, and Paul Allen asks how's his ransom account going. And then the others walk in and begin to show off their business cards to each other. David one-ups Patrick's business card, and he's fuming on the inside. Timothy now whips out an even more impressive card. Then they drop Paul Allen's card, and Patrick is even more upset as he stares stoically at it and begins to sweat. Are that's the opening scenes, Brian? You want to kick us off?
Yeah, sure. Right off the bat, let me just say the music by John Cale in this movie is incredible. Like it's such a damn variety where you get this just perfect sounds and the perfect scenes, and it's just not only like adds to the ambiguity of the movie, it makes it creepy and unnerving in some places, and it also makes it like almost silly in some places, adding to the craziness. So I can't really describe it as anything other than perfect. And I know the single biggest cost on this film was purchasing the rights to the various songs used throughout this, and most aren't used on the film soundtrack because of the rights issues with Huey Lewis and the News. Stop me if you've heard this one before. They seem to always be kind of involved in the damn some sort of rights dispute. Ghostbusters. Anyway, love this opening, dropping you right into this scene. With these amazing actors in Justin Theroux, who wrote Iron Man 2 and Tropic Thunder, and Josh Lucas. Right off the bat, it shows you this incredibly like self-absorbed insanity of this fucking world they're building. When doing research for the book, Ellis apparently said that it was amazing that these people on Wall Street almost did no work at all. I mean, it's just this almost different reality they're living in, and I'll go ahead and say it here, but I know that this movie is up for interpretation. And the way I take most of it is obviously this insane world that they live in where mistaken identity is the entire main theme here because they all dress alike, talk alike. It's a huge statement on, loss of identity in this whole Wall Street rich culture. I think what Mike said, yuppie culture, that they're part of. Hell, when his assistant comes in the first time, work isn't brought up one time. That's Chloe Sevigny, by the way, who was in 1995's Kids with friend of the show, John Abraham. So go listen to that interview. We have that on the website, don'tgoothere.com. This opening daily routine, too, is an amazing scene. Like, first of all, I think it's a brilliant choice by director Mary Herron to have Bale narrate it. And by the way, Bale spends exactly 40% of this movie either shirtless, in his underwear, or naked. But when Bateman, of course, hell, if I looked like that, I would spend 95% of the movie naked or in my underwear too. But when Bateman peels off that silicone face mask, and I'm about to get a little bit deep here, which by the way came off in just one take, I heard. But that's just such a deep scene right here. It's almost coincidentally like Batman, where the face he wears all the time is the mask. Like Bruce Wayne is the mask. Batman's is real underneath. I knew I couldn't really go this whole movie without bringing up Batman. But Lastly, I just wanted to point out the absurdity of this business card scene and how amazing I think that is. By the way, there's a typo on every one of their cards, apparently, though, where they all say mergers and acquisition. The C in acquisitions is actually left out on every single one of their cards. Go ahead, Mike. Like, there's a shitload here. I could keep on talking. I know everybody's got something to say about this one.
Yeah, man, I love this opening scene. It, like you said, it drops you right into a culture of just uppity bullshit, man. Just people that don't have a personality outside of I'm rich. I don't know what I like, and it's kind of hinted at throughout the movie. These guys don't do anything at work, whatever in acquisitions, man. I love that. I love that scene later where the lady either mishears him or doesn't actually listen to what he says. I think it's great. But that's later. But anyway, so you just get this group of guys that are immediately unlikable to a common person like myself, and they haven't even necessarily done anything wrong. They just live in a different world than I do. They come off like assholes. And then you get into this opening shower scene or this opening morning routine scene that I think is just fantastic because the dialogue, Patrick Bateman's voice is so monotone in his own head. When he talks to other people, he's a little more animated as he can be anyway. Right. But when he's in his own head, it's, I'm Patrick Bateman. I live at blah, 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 blah. In the morning, I use this pineapple lotion with coconut, whatever the fuck. And it's great. Like, and what is wild to me is, bad of a guy as Patrick Bateman secretly is anyway, he launched basically his character in this movie. kind of gave life to men's skincare. Like that's a thing that's been researched and studied, within dude culture to take care of your skin started with this film as far as being a little more open and honest about it. That's something that's been looked into. It's been studied and pretty much confirmed. I mean, I'm pretty sure Patrick Bateman has his own skin care stuff or whatever it is, the character. So that's kind of, a little bit of an anti-hero in that way, I guess. But again, great scene. And I love that he's so like everyone around him doesn't actually listen to what he says. I think that's a commentary on nobody in this world, this uppity, rich world is actually listening to what people say. And, he could say, I kill people for a living, and people are like, oh yeah, that's great, man. You sell candy bars for a living. Awesome. But like, I think that's what the commentary is here. And by the way, Brian, I only have one more thing. The business card scene to me is perfect acting and showing whether that be OCD or some kind of personality disorder. Like this card is not very distinguishable from the other card of Paul Allen, but to him, it's the biggest damn thing in the world, and I think he plays that so perfectly. I love the character.
I don't think it's just him, and I don't think it's a personality disorder I think it's just that culture. Like they're in this little bubble, and it's showing the absurdity that these all cards look the same to all of us, but everyone that they lay down, they're all pissed off, like because they know it's better than theirs. Like it's just it's crazy.
And here's where the personality disorder comes in, and I'll let Dustin go, is what he does right after this card scene. To me, that's like, I'm so angry, enraged by this one thing that I don't have perfect, this one thing this guy has better than me. I'm going to go do something about that. So that's where I think that comes in. Sorry, go ahead, Dustin.
No, you're good. So I was having some audio issues on my end, so I have no idea what Brian said, no idea what Nico said, but I have an idea. I think it's a great opening credit scene. The title card sequence and everything, just the setting the tone of all the blood dripping. I think that, and the music that played also, it's pretty psychotic to pair music like that with that scene. The violin was a great choice there. I think it does a great job of showing that all these characters only care about one thing only, and that's status. These people are all narcissistic, but it's crazy because they don't even care about themselves, really. They only care about how they look to other people. It does a great job of, making that abundantly clear. They all look the same. They all dress the same, talk the same, act the same. And Bateman's monologue is elite. There's one quote in particular that's just fantastic. I'm going to read it real quick. He says, "There's an idea of Patrick Bateman, some kind of abstraction, but there is no real me, only an entity, something illusory. And though I can hide my cold glaze and you can shake my hand and feel flesh gripping yours, and maybe you can even sense our lifestyles are probably the same or probably comparable, I simply am not there." That line right there, I simply am not there, is elite. I think
absolutely.
It does a good job of, it could be a double entendre really, because I'm not there. When you say that someone's crazy, they're not all there. And so he's not there as in he's a sociopath and there's nothing behind his cold glare, but he's also not all there in the head. And I think that was a great choice of wording there. This, in the business cards, there's probably some kind of metaphor there or some sort of message there as far as the acquisitions being misspelled on every single card in this movie. They didn't put the C; they spell it AQUI. There's probably something there, but I don't know. I wasn't smart enough to figure that one out. But and another cool thing was every time they show a business card, you get that cool whoosh sound. And the way they did that was slowing down the sound of a sword being unsheathed or being sheathed. I'm not sure if it was going in or out. That's what she said. But overall, I think this movie or the opening scene just does a great job at setting the tone of getting you into the mind of these psychopaths, of these sociopaths, of these narcissists, and letting you know that something's off, especially with Bateman, because he's so obsessive down to the point to where he eats the same shit. He puts a ice pack on his face and does 1,000 crunches, which, you know, Christian Bale actually did that workout
We know.
regimen. So during the film,
It's like,
so yeah, I mean, it did a great job of setting the tone.
Hey, so Dustin, you brought up the acquisitions thing, being misspelled too. And there's actually a lot of, you could almost like, and that's the thing. That's what I wanted to say is I don't know if they're goofs. I don't know if they're on purpose. I don't know. You could say it's on purpose because it adds the whole like, is this a fantasy? Is this a real? Like little things here that are wrong that are wrong. Is that on purpose? Is it not, or is it just something they messed up on the thing? There's a lot of them throughout this movie that I wrote down that I definitely will point out too. But I thought that's very interesting because you just by the sheer gist of how this movie is, you don't know if it's on purpose or not.
For some reason, that business card scene reminds me of at the end of Jaws, whenever the three are in at the table, when they're all just like trying to one up each other. I kind of get the similar vibes, but our Patrick walks down an alley and sees a black homeless man and offers him some food and money. He now asks, "Why don't you get a job?" And he tells him he lost his job. He now tells him to get his act together, and he calls Patrick a kind man. He now tells him he reeks of shit, and Patrick pulls a knife out of his briefcase and calls him a loser and stabs him to death, and then stomps his dog to death. Patrick is now getting a facial, and his skin is praised. I have the characteristics of a human being, but the only two emotions I have are greed and disgust. I think my mask of sanity is about to slip, he says, as he tans. He's now at a Christmas party, and Evelyn says he's late, and he walks away from her when she brings this little piglet to him. He now asks Paul to go to dinner with him. Evelyn asks why he's being called Marcus, and he kisses her under a mistletoe. Patrick walks into a restaurant under the Marcus name and joins Paul for dinner, and they order drinks. Paul criticizes the place and says they should have went to Dorsia. He now asks how he got the Fisher account to no success. He tells Paul he likes to dissect girls and he's insane. Paul calls Patrick a dork. Back at Patrick's apartment, he asks Paul about Huey Lewis and the news and how he became a big fan. He now puts on a raincoat and takes a pill. He sits down his shiny silver axe as Paul asks about newspapers on the floor. He turns on It's Hip to Be Square and then hacks at Paul with the axe. Try getting a reservation at Dorsia now, you stupid fucking bastard, he screams as he chops his body. He removes the raincoat and sits on the couch with blood all over his face and enjoys a cigar. We see him dragging the body out the building, leaving a blood-like streak. He flags down a cab and loads the body up as Lewis stops him and asks where he got that overnight bag, not even acknowledging the body. They get to Paul Allen's place, and he says he felt panic when he realizes his apartment is more expensive than his. He packs Paul's suitcase and says he's about to take a trip, and he changes his answering machine saying he's going to London. Patrick is at work listening to music again as Gene enters, telling him Detective Donald Kimball is here to see him. He fakes a phone call as Donald walks in. Kimball apologizes for coming, but he tells him he's been hired to investigate Paul Allen's disappearance. Patrick keeps insisting on getting him a drink. Then Donald asks some basic questions of his past and how he knew Paul Allen. He asks where Paul hung out and what kind of man he was. He asks where he went to school again. Kimball says he was spotted in London, but it was just a misunderstanding. He says it's just strange. People just disappear. He tells Kimball he has an appointment and has to leave. They shake hands and Kimball leaves. All right, go ahead, Brian. That's the next two scenes I got.
So, a little fun fact, him killing the homeless guy is actually the only scene of this movie I had ever seen. So, that's what I had in my head about this movie for a long time. So, I know we'll get into it at the end, but I definitely think that this murder happened. Like, for whatever reason, it's one of the most memorable scenes in this entire thing for me. It's just so fucking brutal. And, it's where part of you kind of sympathizes a little bit with Bateman up to this point. Well, me anyway. Because of he's stuck in this personal hell basically. And then this happens. And for the first time you're, at least I was really like, holy shit. Like, and something else I'm going to say, it's going to sound maybe weird to hear, but I think this movie could have been longer. Like the movie takes place over like a couple of months and the book takes place, I believe over like 2 years, I believe. And for the first time, like I saw this And I didn't even get that from this movie at all. Like I didn't even get that it took place over that amount of time. But I would have liked to have seen this progression, like this further and further slipping into madness. I guess be more progressive, I guess for lack of a better word, and not so fast. Anyway, I love the way this dinner scene at the dinner table at Halberstam's is shot. Speaking of Fight Club and hell, Batman, Jared Leto himself, another method actor, definitely. But you can tell it's a handheld camera on how this is shot, and that just to me like gives you even more of a sense of unease and just the sheer madness that I mean. Like, but I mean, what really is the madness though here? Is it what Bateman is slipping into here, or is it this entire dinner? I mean, like this entire conversation, just the absurdity of the entire thing, and then we get this amazing scene in the apartment. Bale apparently even improvised that whole moonwalk with the axe, when he comes back into the room.
Oh, brother, that was no moonwalk. That was a Shane McMahon shuffle if I've ever seen one. He looked like Shane O'Mac.
Here comes the money. Here we go.
Okay. All right. Either one. I hate that the kill isn't shown. It's actually not shown in the unrated version either. Unlike this book, which is it's actually described in extremely graphic and detailed manner, apparently. So, it's pretty obvious to me that this particular kill didn't really happen. I mean, I don't know. I guess I'll say something to contradict that probably at the end here. But I mean, with him being alive at the end, and then like the sheer just ludicrous of like Bateman dragging a body through his apartment complex, like leaving that whole blood trail out the front door. So I don't know. I think I chalked that one up into the I don't think it happened category. But the last thing I had here is the coolest thing I think Mary Harron did here. Every scene between the Green Goblin, William Dafoe's Detective Gimble, and Bateman was shot in 3 takes, each from the perspective of Kimball, which always throws me because Detective John Kimball is Schwarzenegger's character in Kindergarten Cop. so that's what I always think about every time I hear that. But anyway, it was shot from the perspective that Kimball thinks Bateman is guilty. Another take was innocent and unsure, which she sporadically used throughout the movie. Like she used different takes to throw you off, since you're basically seeing this from the mind of Bateman and how he's perceiving it. So I thought that was absolutely brilliant. Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, so I really do like the set of scenes. I mentioned how that card scene kind of goes right into him killing this homeless guy and a dog. And first of all, anybody who kills a dog, God, the squeals of the dog break my heart, no matter what, man. Just never liked that in the film. But this shows that, yeah, you feel a little bit bad for him, Brian. I agree with you. But this shows his depravity in a way. And here's why. Because earlier he has the monologue, and I know it's kind of just stuff he's memorized because he's heard it elsewhere. But he talks about feeding the homeless. He talks about civil rights and rights for women and all, stuff that we have to put ahead of Sri Lanka. But he's not living that. He's going out and he's killing homeless people instead. He says, I'm better than you and all this other stuff. And I truly think he feels that way or thinks he has to feel that way at least. And so that's what I take away from it. We finally get, we haven't even mentioned it, even though she's been in the movie already. We get Reese Witherspoon. But look, that was good. Come on. You ever seen that meme? That meme's great, man. Anyway, no, but, this scene has some Christmassy stuff in the back of the Christmas party. And I just want to clear this up. Just because your movie has some Christmas stuff in it doesn't make it a Christmas movie. Looking at you, diehard people. Anyway, I said what I said. Anyway, so we finally get introduced to Paul Allen, Jared Leto's character, which, by the way, outside of a few films here and there, even if he is kind of in charge of a cult now, I like Jared Leto's acting. I think he's pretty good as a method actor. I don't know if his cult is method acting, but that's neither here nor there. He's really good in this as Paul Allen. Again, a very unlikable character where you're not pulling for Patrick Bateman, but you kind of are because this guy's a dick. But so is Patrick Bateman. So it's like it's more the evil to me, or the lesser of the two. You mentioned that that dinner scene, Brian, I think it's shot really well. It makes you, but it also, I love the dialogue there because it shows just how far removed Paul Allen, the character, is from reality of normal fucking people. Like he really complains, like the way he's a dick to the waiter, like it's just very not of where I'm from. And so I find it very easy to root against him. I don't necessarily want him to die the way he ends up dying, but I want something bad to happen.
But none of them are like, they're all exactly the same.
Oh,
person.
absolutely. Absolutely.
All the way
No doubt.
around.
No doubt. The fact that he keeps calling him Marcus is hilarious because that's kind of like his alias, I guess, or whatever. But all right, so we get to the scene back at the apartment. I love the way this scene is lit. I love that his apartment is so bright and there's a lot of white, and it's so funny. Everything in that is like white and silver, but he covers all the couches up with white sheets, white newspaper, all of that stuff. The scene, where he talks about Huey Lewis and he talks about what the song means, what that album means. It sounds to me like, yeah, he may actually know that and feel that, but it sounds like something he's heard before from other people, and he's just kind of picked it up to seem like he's into something. Like, is he actually into all this music, or is it something that he's heard and memorized, kind of like his "we need to have world peace and fix the homeless problem" or whatever, that kind of thing earlier that he's probably memorized. He's got this stuff kind of down to a T too. So I thought that was just really, again, in line with this Patrick Bateman character that I love. I love the kill. I know we don't see it. The horror fan in me really, the slasher really wants to see it. However, I like the blood splatter on Christian Bale's face. I love the look that he gets when he's chopping at a guy. Like, man, he's aggressive. It really pulls no punches on what kind of violence this guy's capable of when he snaps in this way. And I like that. I love the dancing, the dancing with is that a raincoat? Yes, it is. Like, just, you could see Patrick Bateman losing his mind right in front of our eyes. And then to top it all off, I got to give credit, man. He, like, when a football player or any kind of sports guy wins a big game, they puff out a cigar. My man had a big kill and decided, time for a stogie. I'm going to sit right here and smoke this cigar. Like, he was proud of what he did. I thought that was a nice touch. But yeah, man, I really do enjoy this set of scenes. Also, shout out to the actress who plays Jean. I know you've already said her name, Chloe. I can't pronounce the last name, I don't believe. But she's also in one of my favorite Netflix shows, Bloodline. So it clicked for me about halfway through the movie again. I'm like, oh yeah, that's what's her name from Bloodline. Okay, cool. So I throw that out there. Also, Reese Witherspoon, call me sometime.
Yeah. So I think it's completely fucked that he was this rude to the homeless guy, and then in that way he inspired him. He's like, and the homeless guy's like, okay, yeah, you're right, and then he kills him anyway. God damn, that pissed me off. But I think the mix-up of the names was a great job of showing that all these people have been so consumed with fitting in with each other that they're really just interchangeable. Exactly. And, this is the first scene that we really get that part. No one knows who's who. And right. I like that a lot. When he gets Paul back to his apartment and he basically admits to him that I murdered people, this is where the lines of, is this really happening or is it not? This is where it's like, what the fuck's really going on? You don't think that at first. Like, if your first watch through, I don't think, because you don't know how the ending is. But at this point, it's really, like you said, Mike, I love the atmosphere of that room, how white it is. Mm-hmm. I wish that we would have got more visual of the axe.
Me too.
And if not that, I wish we'd have got more visual of the blood. Like maybe the room, like a better shot of the blood all over that white room. And, that probably had a lot to do with the MPAA, because I know that had the movie been made verbatim with the book, it would have been a hard X rating. The finished product of this movie was NC-17 already, which is a disaster because you can't get those distributed in theaters and everything. So they really had to tone it down from what was even shot just to get us a rated R movie. So, I mean, I get it. It's just selfishly, I would have liked to have seen more. I would like that to be, utilized better, the white room. The overnight bag when he's putting it in the trunk. This is another scene of like, okay, is there really a body in there, or is he literally just loading a bag into a trunk because that's all the guy sees? Nice bag. I thought it was great when Kimball came to see him in the office. Now, this is one of my biggest knocks on the movie is I wish we would have been able to see the cat and mouse between Kimball and Bateman play out more. And when you said, Brian, that you kind of wish this movie would have been longer, that's odd to say, but this movie's only an hour and 41 minutes. It's a pretty easy hour and 41 minute watch. So I think you could easily stretch this one to, I don't know,
2:15.
Yeah, 2:15.
Like
so 2:05 is what I was aiming at, 2:15. And I don't think you would have suffered because you would have been able to tell the story more completely.
Mike just had a heart attack.
And Mike probably would have never watched it. But last thing on this set of scenes, I did think it was funny when he said he had to meet Cliff Huxtable at the Four Seasons. It's even creepier in hindsight, knowing that Bill Cosby also turned out to be a piece of shit, and so you got a serial killer and a serial rapist going to go have lunch at the Four Seasons. So that's kind of fucked.
You could say that it didn't age well, but then again, actually, it probably aged pretty perfectly for this age.
Exactly what you. Yeah. All the stuff you mentioned before you go, Nico, that I just forgot all about it. There, what makes me think the scene could go either way. Did this kill happen? Did it not happen? It's just the simple fact that the bag scene that you mentioned, Dustin, and even before that with Paul, like, he's telling people, I kill people. I have this problem. And no one's listening. Like, so is it because no one takes right? Is he actually saying it? Or because really what I took away from no one hearing him is no one in that world is really listening to anybody. I kind of mentioned it at the top of the show where I just think that no one in that world gives a fuck what Patrick Bateman has to say. And so like later we get murders and executions, which hilarious, by the way. It just drops it so casually. I fucking love that line. But she thinks it's something else. Like, I don't think anyone's actually listening to this guy. And the bag scene is a perfect example of that because all that guy sees is an expensive tote bag. That's it. And that's the first time that I wondered. The second time I ever watched this movie was, is there a body in that bag, or is it a bunch of shit that Patrick Bateman put in a bag?
Well, I mean, and plus whenever he's dragging it past the security guard or the night guard or whatever, it's just a big blood streak all the way down. But then when you get outside and he's putting it in the car, there's no blood streak all the way down anymore. So did that happen? Did it not happen? Was that on purpose?
Anything about
up? So who knows?
And no one says anything about the blood. And there's more of that later where just no one hears anything. No one says anything. And so it kind of does leave it really in. So what I think, and that's okay as the movie goes here, I think some of it happened and some of it didn't. That's really where I sit. Maybe he's a killer, but maybe in his mind, he's more along the lines of Ed Gein and, Ted Bundy, well, I guess I don't even know if Ted Bundy had happened by the time the movie takes place. I'm not up to date on my timeline with serial killers, but he's fashioned himself into this like big time serial killer to stand out. And maybe he's not quite that. He just kills homeless people and prostitutes.
Well, not only that, Mike, like nothing in any of their minds even happens or matters, or they don't hear anything unless it's, unless the other person acknowledges it and like sees it. You know what I'm saying? If that makes sense. It's like, I have to have your approval for anything to even exist in my world. Also, a little fun fact too, like I thought was really cool, and it definitely applies to the business card scene from the first thing. But hell, apparently Bale can literally sweat on cue. Like apparently the entire cast was just amazed at that ability. The dude can just fucking start pouring sweat for no reason. Just amazing.
And as much as I love Leo DiCaprio, these people wanted Leo DiCaprio. That would not have worked for me, pal.
And Johnny Depp too.
That definitely wouldn't work for. And I love all three of those guys.
And so Edward Norton.
Edward Norton, yeah.
And Brad Pitt was tied to it too, pal.
Fuck Brad Pitt. Ed Norton would have killed this role.
I think this role was cast so perfectly.
I do too. It was perfect.
I think Depp could have done a good job too. Maybe not as good as Bale, but Depp's good at this slipping in the madness stuff.
I agree.
Yeah.
Ed Norton, is just the GOAT. Go ahead.
All right. I love Ed Norton, but come on, man.
But it's funny you brought up Ed Gein and Ted Bundy because Texas Chainsaw Massacre is playing in this movie, which was inspired by Ed Gein, and Patrick Bateman makes a Ted Bundy joke later to Gene when they were there in the apartment together. I mean,
and he uses a chainsaw, or does he?
Yeah, or does he? And Dustin, I watched several YouTube videos just getting prepared for this because if you search this movie on YouTube, it's just there's no scenes really. It's just all analysis videos,
all breakdown analysis, which I listened to at work today.
Yeah, the one I saw said that it got an NC-17. They didn't really have to cut kills out; they had to cut sex out. There was too much sex in it.
Right, I actually got that broken down here. Yeah, the only thing that they took
I'll let
out.
you get to that later.
Okay.
Let's jump into the next set of scenes. We see a plate of food now and hear a woman screaming. And now we see it's the Texas Chainsaw Massacre playing as Patrick does crunches and jump ropes. Nighttime now, and we see him now in his limo. He stops and picks up a woman. He's now on the phone ordering a blonde who's into couples. He tells the girl his name is Paul Allen, and she will answer to only Christy. She's in a bathtub drinking wine, and he tells her to wash her vagina. He answers the phone call and has the woman sent up. He gives her instructions and to meet them in the living room for drinks. He calls her Sabrina. He sits down and asks if they want to know what he does, but they say no. He tells them anyways. He works on Wall Street. They compliment his place, and he tells her no smoking. He walks around the room speaking on a Phil Collins album, and they join him in a bed. He has the women remove their clothes as he brings out like a video recorder. He now orders them around to dance and bend over, still speaking on Phil Collins. He now turns on an upbeat Collins song and begins to have sex with the women and looks at himself in the mirror as he flexes and rubs on his hair. He gets up in the night and walks Sabrina and Christy out and pays her. Paul, Craig, and David now begin to talk about women, and Patrick brings up Ed Gein and says something about women's head ending up on a stick, which the other men kind of find weird. Lewis whips out his business card now, and Patrick is fuming again. Patrick walks away, following Lewis to the bathroom as he puts his gloves on. He gets behind Lewis and grabs his neck, but Lewis turns around and kisses his hand. He asks, "Why here?" and accuses him of looking at him. Patrick walks away and washes his hands, gloves now, and walks away. "I've got to return some videotapes," he says as he storms away.
I love
and
that.
Lewis symbols for him to call him. He's back at the office, and Patrick has Donald enter his office. Kimball asks where he was the 20th of December, the night Paul disappeared. He says he had a date, but Kimball says that's not the information I've received. He asks when's the last time he was with Paul Allen. He says they saw a musical and went to dinner. Kimball asks him to join him for lunch next week and asks him to pin down where he was the night Paul disappeared. He shows Patrick his Huey Lewis album, but now Patrick isn't a fan of Huey Lewis. All right, go ahead, Brian.
First of all, my God, it's just so insane that we see this threesome scene to Phil Collins singing Studio.
I fucking love that song, though. It's so good.
But like we were talking about earlier, just a minute ago, actually, this is actually the one scene that had to be edited for the rated version that originally got at the NC-17. The first shot's longer. The scene where we see it through the camera lens, which I love the shot choice on that, by the way. I thought that was also shortened. A shot of one of the prostitutes going down on Bateman was cut altogether, and just basically extended versions of the shots we saw here were cut. So it's really not that big of a difference between the unrated and this. It's actually kind of surprising that's all they had to cut. Also, when the prostitute's hand falls on the watch and he says, "Don't touch the watch," like a little backstory, the film had a lot of problems with designer labels apparently during production, and Cerruti agreed to allow Christian Bale to wear their clothes, but not when the character was killing anyone. Rolex agreed that anyone in the film could wear their watches except Bateman. Hence the famous line from the book, "Don't touch the Rolex," had to be changed to "Don't touch the watch" here. And honestly, we didn't need to even see what he did to them afterwards. Honestly, Kara Seymour and Krista Sutton, I think, did tremendous with her acting as they leave the apartment. I noticed when he was holding up this Phil Collins album, though, firstly, it cuts to a close up of his hand holding the album, and it was covering up the album name. And I noticed it the first time on whenever he was doing the Huey Lewis and the News one, but when they did it again here, this one I was like, wait a minute, something's up. So like I thought that was bizarre. So I researched that a little bit. It was a mess up here originally. Apparently, when Bateman holds it up, it's the No Jacket Required album. When Into Deep is actually from Genesis album Invisible Touch. So they fixed it. Just having I guess a random person's hand they shot covering it up, because even though it's a minor error, and who would care, someone obsessed with music like Bateman is like wouldn't make that mistake in the movie. So at the Hotel Cigar Lounge, lastly, the scene with the guys just talking and Bateman makes that comment about Geen. That's actually wrong, by the way. That quote is actually from Ed Kemper, not Geen. I don't know if that was on purpose or not, but regardless, it's
Damn it, I had that. Damn it. I finally had a fun fact.
Regardless, though, it's another example of how he tells these people like his inner thoughts, like Mike, like you said, Mike, the truth. He removes that mask I talked about earlier in the first set of scenes. He removes that mask for a minute, and then it's just like blown off as per usual. And then you get that bathroom scene with Lewis, and you can tell that this is getting just so fucking bizarre. Like you can see how he's starting to lose his mind. You feel that, for the first time in this whole movie, to me, like, okay, like he's really starting to lose his shit. Like we've seen amazing descents into madness. We've also seen some great descents into caves too. A great movie, The Descent. That's for you, Dustin. But we've seen some great descents into madness, but none where you actually felt it or seen it from their point of view. And it's just such a trip to watch. And man, I was returning videotapes. Such a damn good line. I mean, it's just amazing writing from Brett Ellis.
Okay. First of all, I just want to ask a question. It's not normal to do crunches to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, because I mean, I've done that. Now I feel really awkward that it's viewed this way. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So I actually really like that scene, partially because it's a little bit of an Easter egg for what comes later. I think especially the scene they chose, when Sally's kind of being chased and gets away in the back of the truck. So like, I think that's definitely there for a reason. It also shows just the way that Patrick Bateman is able to pick up and move on as far as what he's doing and just do crunches. Like he's back on his regular routine. I think that's it's really good. So this threesome scene is so uncomfortable from the very start of him picking up the lady of the night in the limo. It's so uncomfortable, and yet I can't turn away because the acting by the two women is so good as far as their facial expressions go, where you can tell they fucking hate this guy. They would rather deal with the married dad of 4 kids who's going out on his wife. Like they would rather deal with that guy than this fucking creep. That's making them do. Now they like the money this guy pays, but they would rather deal with that than whatever the fuck this guy's having them do. He's having them, wear weird stuff and clean your vagina and just, really weird, odd, specific request, changing their names. And all, so again, it's just such a very uncomfortable vibe, but again, it makes for a really good movie scene. I will say, I'm not going to lie. When he said, "Don't just stare at it, eat it," I fucking laughed my ass off. I'm sorry. I couldn't help myself.
Dude, real quick, that line, and then in another Jared Leto movie, Requiem for a Dream, there's a line where Keith David, one of the goats, Keith David, he tells her, "Well, it ain't gonna suck itself." Those 2 lines are the 2 lines that stick in my head more than anything else.
Yeah,
what the fuck is wrong with my brain?
She can see your asshole. All this dancing. Well, don't just stare at it, eat it. I was like, oh my God, what the fuck? And then again, like the uncomfortableness in which they both leave his apartment, like is written all over their face. They don't have to say anything. They just went through something that's probably pretty traumatic for both of them. Like I think it made them both very uncomfortable, and I like that. So, I mean, I don't like that, but I like the acting, and I think that's really well done. And you get the conversation here with these 4 guys, and he drops the line about Geen. And Brian, you kind of touched on this, but I just wanted to briefly piggyback. And one, he has the wrong guy quoted, but that's okay. But to me, it reinforces everything we've already said. they kind of don't. So they kind of actually hear him this time because they kind of have like that little awkward laugh. But I think they just assume that Bateman's a weird guy. But what he's really trying to say is, I kill women, heads on sticks, and I think that's kind of odd because he has heads in the freezer later and heads in the closet later and all this other stuff. So I think, again, a lot of foreshadowing into what he actually is, and no one fucking listens to this guy. And if you really, he kind of has these aliases or whatever, like Marcus and, his other names. Everyone that says Patrick Bateman, they call him a loser, skinny, weirdo, whatever they call him. That's what they know Bateman as. And so to these other people, that Patrick Bateman didn't even exist. So it was interesting to just kind of see him try to hang out with the guys and it kind of backfire on him there. But yeah, man, I like that. I don't know if Kimball bringing up the Huey Lewis album is purposeful on accident. Like, is that something that, does Kimball know something, or are we supposed to take that as that's a coincidence that makes Patrick Bateman sweat his ass off? Like, and I really like that, ambiguous nature of that scene. So yeah, that's all I have.
Yeah, I agree with that. So before I get in the rest of that, Huey Lewis, Kimball pulling out the CD is so random that it's almost like it was done strictly to play up the paranoia that Bateman clearly lives with. He's paranoid about everything. He doesn't want to be, he thinks other people are better than him. He feels like people think he's a loser. And now he's like, is this guy playing in my face? Like, is he taunting me with this Huey Lewis CD? So yeah, I definitely agree. That was a great choice in how that scene played out. But so back to the first of this set of scenes, him picking up the hooker was really interesting to me because you think, based on what we saw, like he's probably just going to murder this girl like from the beginning because he's got a mistress that's well off and lives the same lifestyle as him and is drugged out of her mind, so he doesn't have to put up with her. He's got a supposed fiance, is how he described her, in Reese Witherspoon. And so what's he doing picking up a crack whore off the side of the street like that, and one that he has to tell to wash her vagina, which was such a fucking weird scene. But he doesn't kill her, and then he brings the high-end call girl over, and I meant to say it last set of scenes, but when he's playing the music and he's describing just so in depth, giving so many factoids about the artist, and I wasn't really into their style. I found it to be blah blah blah. Like, that is very psychotic. Like, it just shows to me how obsessive Patrick Bateman is. He doesn't just want to be up on the newest music. He wants to learn everything about them so that he can never be challenged, because that might be one thing that he has up on people. And so I thought that was a great choice as well. When we get to him in the restaurant and him following Lewis in the restroom after he's pissed off with his business cards, that to me is showing probably the most realistic depiction of what's actually going on. He might have these urges to kill people and these urges to damage people, but when it comes down to it, he couldn't go through with it. He puts these gloves on, and I thought it was also ironic that he previous set of scenes, he tells Kimball that he thinks that Paul Allen was part of that Yale thing, does a lot of drugs and is probably a closeted homosexual. And then here's Lewis kissing his hand in the bathroom, touching his lip and saying, "I want you." And so there's a lot of underlying things there. And then, we get back to Kimball in the office, or following him in the office and talking to him about Paul Allen missing. Is he dead or is he not? Like that, the thing about the book is the ending, and I know that we've referenced the ending a lot, and we still have 3 more sets of scenes to go through, but you kind of have to. The ending of this book makes it, you just question everything that's really going on here. And the movie, the movie is, so the writer of the book said that he never intended for this to be a film because films are so definite. It's certain what happened, what didn't, unless you just confuse everyone. The book is meant to be more ambiguous, but not really confuse you. And that's what we get here, because like he's asking about Paul Allen missing. But but it's very odd because he told him last time they chatted he was seen in London having lunch, but that's yet to be confirmed. And then in the end, we hear that I had lunch with him in London 2 times last week. Tell the fucking cops that. Like, I don't know. It's all over the place about making you really confused about, is he dead? Is anyone really dead? Are we even alive? This is The Matrix. This movie is The Matrix. Anyway, go ahead.
Before you go, what do you guys think about that Lewis scene? Is that something? So like you said, you think that's something real that happens. Bateman doesn't overreact. Like, yeah, he's uncomfortable, but he doesn't kill him or anything. Like, he just kind of leaves the bathroom and says, I have to go take back some videotapes or whatever. Like, what do you think that is? Is that real? Did that happen? Like, what's the deal there?
Well, that's his line to exit a very uncomfortable situation that he just wants to get the fuck away from. And I think that he's just going, my personal opinion, he's just going, he doesn't even know what the fuck's going on. Like, he's seeing all this crazy shit happening and he doesn't even know whether he's to trust himself or not, and just wants to get out of there. That's the way I took it. But I did think that it was something real that did happen, in my opinion, as well.
Anytime it seems like Patrick has to open up, he just shuts down and just leaves, or he just snaps. Right. Like, even when like Evelyn at the end, he just snaps on her. He doesn't actually talk to her. So that's all I think it is, personally. All right, Patrick is having sex now with Courtney, and she asks if he'll call her before Easter, and she asks what's he doing tonight. She asks if they can talk. He says she looks marvelous. He says, you're going to marry Lewis. Isn't that special, she says. If I don't see you before Easter, have a nice one, okay, she tells him. He grabs his coat and walks out. We're at a club, and Patrick and Timothy do some cocaine together. Timothy snaps on the guy beside them. The men are sitting around with some ladies talking, and Patrick is asked what he does. He says he's into murders and executions, but she mishears him, thinking he said mergers and acquisitions. He asks her where she works out now. They're outside, and she says he thinks she's dumb, huh? And she says there's something sweet about him as they take a taxi together. We see Patrick rubbing his face with a locket of blonde hair as Jean walks in asking if he needs help with the crossword puzzle. He asks her if she'd like to come to dinner with him. He tells her to pick somewhere she'd like to go. She picks Dorcia. He calls Dorcia and they say they're booked, but he plays off like he got the reservation. He asks Jean to be at his place at 7 for drinks. She's at Patrick's now, and we see a woman's head in the freezer as he offers her sorbet. He tells her he's on a diet, but she says he's very fit and looks great. He looks at Knives and asks what she wants from her life, but to keep it brief. He asks about if she has a boyfriend, and he says he's not really seeing anyone either. We see all of his serial killer items in his closet as he grabs duct tape. He now tells her Ted Bundy's collie was named Lassie, but she doesn't know who that is. She asks if he's ever wanted to make someone happy. He walks behind her and holds a nail gun to her head, but the phone rings and it's Evelyn on the voicemail. He gives Jean a mean stare as she asks if they're still seeing each other. She asks if she should leave, and he says, yes, I can't control myself. If you stay, something bad will happen. I would hurt you, he says. She leaves and reminds him of his lunch with Donald Kimball. Patrick and Kimball are at lunch now, and he asks him about the night Paul disappeared. He tells him he took a shower, had some sorbet. But then he tells Patrick about his dinner with Marcus, but he has an alibi. Patrick chugs his liquor and he asks where Marcus was. He was at Atlantis with several men, including Patrick. Kimball says he thinks the guy just went nutso. One of his friends killing him for no reason would be ridiculous, huh, Patrick? As Patrick stares at him sweating. All right, go ahead, Brian. That's the next 2 scenes I got.
Yeah, and I think that the scene with Jean here, I think that did happen too, because, I mean, again, like, we're talking about months and all these unseen murders that we supposedly, he didn't see that he has done. Why would he be so like timid on doing it? I think that he's trying to build up to killing people that he knows, like all these people in his life, but he just can't. I think he just can't do it.
Well, yeah, I mean, Courtney's the prime example of that. I mean, plenty of opportunities.
Or Jean, you mean, like his assistant?
No, I just meant he has frequent sex with Courtney. And, And it doesn't do anything else.
And actually, speaking of her, Samantha Mathis, I was here in the scene that I actually realized that she was from that Super Mario Brothers movie. Hey, super underrated movie too, by the way.
I agree.
um, what? Where are you going, Mike? Anyway, all right. So
He's too young to appreciate it.
true. But anyway, Courtney, she's definitely a Marilyn Monroe type character in this. You know, like everyone else, taking to their vices because they're so miserable in their meaningless lives. I mean, another mess up though in this scene when Bateman gets off the bed to dress up, like, or to get dressed, the microphone can be seen on the mirror of the bedroom. And I just honestly hate that we're left on this cliffhanger with her. Like they leave you with this ambiguously line that like I took as, oh shit, well she might commit suicide, kind of in that whole Marilyn Monroe type of thing. But that's it. We just don't really hear about anything from her again. And I wish again that we'd had a little bit more time to kind of see how that played out one way or the other. I laughed my ass off at the entire scene in the bathroom stalls. It reminds me of that Tony and Ezekiel skit, you know, the one where they're like, "Hey Ezekiel, fuck you." I don't know why, but it definitely did. Also, just a little mess up here in that nightclub scene. The music playing is "What's on Your Mind" by Information Society, but that was actually released in 1988, and this movie is supposed to be set in 1987. Lastly, like we just talked about that scene with Gene. Like I also love how Dorcia keeps coming up, and it's just like this trigger word with him because he just can't get in there. And Bales does such a great job with just showing it, and it hits him. It like jars him when Gene brings it up, and just the conversation between Bateman and Gene is so fucking good here. Where she thinks he's talking about sex, and then obviously he's talking about literally murdering her. Such a tense scene. I thought it was very well done. Lastly, you know, another thing here, I went back and double checked it too. When Bateman is with Kimball, he says, I must have had dinner with Victoria the following night. Earlier, he called her Veronica. You know, I'm not sure if that was on purpose either, but it's definitely different. Go ahead, Mike.
I just think it's Patrick Bateman losing his mind. I mean, that's the only thing I could take from it anyway. Yeah. So again, I'm with you, Brian. I really, you know, we kind of, you know, he has sex with Courtney again, and then she kind of, it's like she wants to say something else, but doesn't actually say it. And we just get an open-ended thing with her. Like we don't see her again. We don't hear about her again. I would have liked a little bit of finality on that character and that relationship, especially since her soon-to-be husband, or at some point, was trying to have sex with Patrick Bateman in the bathroom. But anyway, yeah. So this scene with Gene is so good. One, you just see the situation where the powerful boss is kind of taking advantage of, you know, his secretary that clearly looks up to him. It reminds me of a certain president that we used to have back in the day. Anyway, but you see him kind of, which, you know, he kind of treats her like shit a little bit anyway, then asks her to dinner, you know, so again, you know, like you mentioned, Brian, a place that he knows he can't get into, even the phone call, you know, he acts like he has a reservation, but he actually doesn't. And she even calls him out, you know, that you didn't give a name and all that. So I thought that was interesting. It's a very big trigger for him, and I like that. You get this scene with Gene. It's not uncomfortable, but it made me very uneasy because I was really hoping Bateman doesn't kill her because he was starting to head down the path that he does with everyone else.
Yeah.
And so Gene is really the only other character outside of Bateman that I'm invested in, kind of attached to, because you feel bad for her because you see her infatuation with him, and the feeling is not mutual because he doesn't have any feelings at all for the most part. And so that's that feeling is not reciprocated. He's taking advantage of the situation, or was trying to. I thought that was interesting. And, you know, Reese Witherspoon calls, the whole answering machine thing. You could just see the disappointment on Gene's face. And like, I will give, you know, the character of Patrick Bateman credit. He basically tells her, get out or I'm going to kill you. Like, I have this urge to kill you. And if you don't leave, it's going to end very, very bad for you. Again, really good scene. I think the acting between both parties is just so good. I give a lot of credit to that. And again, you get the scene at the nightclub real quick, which again has one of my favorite lines in the whole movies. Ask me a question. So what do you do? I'm into murders and executions. Actually, oh, do you like it? Well, that depends. Well, most of the guys I know that are in mergers and acquisitions don't like it. And I was like, this is great. This is really, really good. I thought that was great. Again, just another example of no one really listening in that world. They have too much going on, or they don't have anything going on, depending on how you look at it. Just no one actually paying attention to what people are saying. And I think that's really good dialogue to just kind of slip that in there. His lunch with Kimball, kind of the first time I ever watched it made me a little nervous that is this movie going to have a thing where he gets caught? Because to me, that's not fun. Like that doesn't set up a good ending. But turns out, no, that wasn't the case. But I noticed the other name too, Brian. Like I noticed that he called the girl something different because he just can't keep his story together. I think that's what that is. That he just has, names for people that he because he really didn't care about anybody but how he appears to other people. So, but like you said, my man Christian Bale's a sweating machine, bro. Like it's wild. That man can sweat like no one's business. I give him credit for that. So yeah, again, another really good set of scenes. I just kind of realized in my notes I don't really have anything negative so far. So I don't know what that says. Uh-oh.
10.
A 10. A fucking 10.
So, this set of scenes, first off, when we're in the club and we get the scene with the drugs, they're doing cocaine in the bathroom. Honestly, I was surprised we didn't have more drug use in this movie because the late 80s and this lifestyle they're living, that's all they lived on cocaine, brother. But there's a line in there when they're talking about, STDs, and he says, if you catch AIDS, you can catch anything. Alzheimer's, muscular dystrophy, hemophilia, leukemia, dyslexia. He's like, I'm not sure, but I don't think dyslexia is a disease. That line cracks me up every time. This movie does have some funny moments if you really think about it. We get a very tense scene with Jean here because you really sympathize, empathize, and like Jean. She seems like a sweet girl that's just trying to make it. She's just working an honest job, does anything that Patrick wants, but it's also probably in love with him because, I know the 80s, late 80s was a different time, but earlier in the film when he's like, don't wear that outfit again. You're prettier than that. Wear a dress. Oh, and high heels. I like high heels. Most women wouldn't, they may not go to HR like they would in 2021, but they might have, quit. I don't know. Because the next time we see her, she's wearing a skirt. So, you really feel for Jean. You can tell she'll do whatever. And then when he's like, I'll take you wherever you want, it's like you see it in her face. She's so excited. This is her chance to live the life that she wants. And then the disappointment with, are you still with her? Like, that's sad. But there's another funny line in here, though, when she's like, what's that? He goes, it's duct tape. I need it for taping something. Like that. That cracks me up every time, too. But the last thing I have is that lunch scene with Kimball. This is what I meant earlier. Like when I said I wish they would have done this cat and mouse more with Kimball, I want them to make you think that this movie is going to end with an arrest, and they hit at it so much. Like when we get these scenes, there's parts where, like you said, Brian, it's shot from 3 different perspectives, and you can tell, like there's certain lines that he delivers and looks on his face. You're like, okay, he believes you. The second one is, he's not so sure. And third way, it's like, oh, he knows that he's guilty. But I wanted more of that. And I think that Willem Dafoe, this might be one of my favorite acting jobs by him. And I think he's a fine actor. So that's saying something. That's a credit to him, not a knock on him. But, we get he's asking him about the dinner, who all was there. And he's like, oh, you were there, right? And he goes, oh, yeah, of course. That whole scene makes you think that, oh, he's on to him. And then he loosens up. It's like, personally, I think the guy went a little crazy. Okay, he's back. We're good. We're in the clear here. But my favorite one is when he says, to think that one of his friends killed him for no reason whatsoever would be too ridiculous. Isn't that right, Patrick? And that creepy smile he gives him, it's like, oh, shit, okay, he's on to him. So it's another good set of scenes. Like you said, Mike, I don't really have too much negatives, except for I wanted this movie to be a little bit longer, a little bit more elaborate in the stories they're telling, and I wanted more blood. That's okay. we can deal with those negatives.
That's that William Dafoe Green Goblin smile right there, isn't it, Dustin?
Yeah, this movie. Oh,
No.
this movie is short because of the budget. I'll get to that.
Yeah.
All right, Patrick picks up Christy again, and she doesn't want to go. She had to go to the emergency room after last time. He says it won't be like last time, and just ride with him and talk to him. She says she might need surgery, and she should go get a lawyer. Patrick pulls out a check, and she takes it and walks away, but they follow her. He whistles and offers her money. She gets back in the limo with him. Half now, half later, he tells her. They're meeting a friend, Elizabeth, shortly at his new apartment. Elizabeth tells Christy she looks familiar as Patrick spikes their drinks. Christy says this place is nicer than the last apartment. He tells Elizabeth that that's his cousin from France. She asks about the guy who disappeared at his job. He tells him he'd like to see them two get it on. Elizabeth laughs as Christy sits there uncomfortably. The two ladies begin to kiss as Patrick tells him about Whitney Houston's album with 4 #1 singles. He tells his feelings of her song, The Greatest Love of All. He begins to have sex with the women now. Christy tries to sneak away, and she sees blood in the sheets now, and Elizabeth screams. She runs down the halls and finds 2 dead women hanging in a closet. Patrick chases after her with a chainsaw now. She trips, and he bites her leg. She kicks him in his face and runs out, banging on doors, screaming. She runs down these winding stairs, and he chases after her naked with the chainsaw. He times up her running and drops the chainsaw down the stairs and screams at her. The chainsaw hits her right in the side of her body, killing her. Evelyn tells Patrick she wants a firm commitment. He says he wants to engage in homicidal behavior on a massive scale. It's the only way to fulfill his needs. He says it's over, Evelyn. She says he's touchy and to just forget the wedding. He begins to snap, and she realizes he's serious. What about the past, she asks. I'm in touch with humanity, he says. I'm sorry, but you're not terribly important to me. She cries very loud now and asks what he wants. He says stop making a scene, and he walks out saying he has to return some videotapes. Patrick grabs a kitten, and the ATM says feed it a stray cat, and he tries to shove the cat in the ATM. He shoots a woman questioning him, and we hear cops pull up. He walks away kicking cars, setting off their alarms. He runs away now, still being chased. He shoots at the cops, shooting some and blowing up their cars. He seems puzzled and runs away. He walks in a building and shoots the receptionist or the guard, whatever, as he's asked to sign in. He runs out the other side of the building, but shoots the janitor before leaving. Back in his office building, and he signs in. He takes the elevator up to his office. He sees helicopters flying, and he calls his lawyer, confessing to killing some girls, homeless people, and several others as he weeps on the phone. And Paul Allen with an axe whose body is dissolving in Hell's Kitchen. Maybe 20, maybe 40 people. He says he ate some of their brains and tried to cook some. He laughs now and says he had to kill a lot of people and says he might not get away with it this time. I'm a pretty sick guy. If you get back tomorrow, meet me at Harry's bar and keep your eyes open. And he hangs up the phone. Helicopter flies and we get more visuals of New York. All right, the next 2 scenes are the ending. Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, a little tidbit here. Elizabeth is actually Guinevere Turner, one of the co-writers on the screenplay. Patrick actually suggested Elizabeth to have sex with Christy, to which Elizabeth scoffs at the suggestion, obviously, asking why he'd think that she'd be into lesbianism. Patrick responds, that she went to Sarah Lawrence College. In real life, Turner went to Sarah Lawrence College and is a lesbian. So obviously this is where the line gets super blurred with reality and not, did this happen with the chainsaw? Why do people not hear it in the stairwell? Is everyone there just so self-absorbed that they don't care to hear? Definitely a lot of ambiguity here. Regardless, awesome fucking kill on camera anyway. And hats off to Carrie Seymour yet again on her acting. Terrified. I mean, she did a fantastic job. During this scene here too, apparently, fun fact, Bale would, or not so fun fact, depending on how you look at it, Bale would happily and literally hang out between takes wearing nothing but a sock over his penis and some tennis shoes. So is the kill realistic? I mean, no, but that's the point, I think, here. And I think the fact that it flips to him drawing it and what it shows at the end in the book, I mean, that's where I'm going to think, like, in my own mind, that this is one of the kills that didn't happen. Obviously, this is a huge losing your mind sequence here when he flips out and is losing all sense of reality here, and so are we. the one shot at the police car and exploding. Even looks like it surprises him. Like, what the fuck is it? Like, it can't be real. Bale does an amazing job when he calls his lawyer, though. Like, I definitely understand why this is looked at as one of his best performances. And lastly, like, shout out, I haven't talked about Witherspoon at all. Like, she does a great here, I think, opposite of Bale, in a pretty serious conversation between the two at dinner. Like, and little fun fact, she was actually 3 months pregnant here. But Bale just fucking kills it yet again, especially at the end where we get I'm just leaving to return some videotapes. Like, I don't know, I loved that so much. Go ahead, Mike.
Again, another really good set of scenes, man. Partially because he goes to pick up Christy again, and she's just so uncomfortable, but you know the state that her life is in. She kind of has to accept this money and go with this guy, even though she's completely creeped out. She's completely uncomfortable. She doesn't want to do it because of her experience last time and it being very traumatic. She has to go do it anyway because that's how she earns her money. And he drops a shit ton of it to get her to finally get in the limo. She gets out of the limo once and comes back in. The whole scene there with this particular threesome, and all the, they're, getting them to kind of fool around with each other first and all that stuff. Again, just manipulating the situation. And then it turns out exactly like Christy expects it to, except maybe even worse. Again, you mentioned it. This is where the line for me starts to go. I'm not thinking this happened because there's no way. I mean, I guess there was a way because we forgive a lot of shit in the slasher movies that we watch, but there's no way to me that this chainsaw gets revved and he's chasing her around like Leatherface does Sally, and no one hears it. She's screaming and knocking on the doors. No one opens the door. Nothing. And I know they live in, this rich, high-style world, but to me, there's no way that somebody doesn't hear or see something that would cause some kind of panic as she's screaming at the top of her lungs, and there's a loud-ass chainsaw coming after her. Also, that kill where he just drops the chainsaw down the middle of the stairwell and hits her exactly where it wanted her to, that is a little unrealistic to me. Where so far in this movie, we've had some realistic killing. So that one, again, seemed a little imagined in his head. I think he's a killer. I just don't think he's the killer he thinks he is. He's kind of has this heightened sense of importance to his kills, especially when he goes on the spree. You talked about the police car. That seems a little over the top to me. This stretch feels so out of place with the rest of this movie that I think is grounded in more reality. And so I think Patrick Bateman's losing his sense of reality. He's losing his connection with the real world. And I think that plays out pretty how we think it, will. And again, I love the scene where he calls his lawyer. Christian Bale is a fucking master in that scene, man. His facial expressions, the dialogue, the way he delivers it. I love the way it's shot. The apartment's dark. All you see is the backlight, and the helicopter light and all that stuff. I think that's a fucking great scene, man. Just all that dialogue, all that. Kill 20, pause, maybe 40 people. Again, he's losing his sense of reality. He has no idea how many people he's killed. As far as I'm concerned, he's killed like 3. But in his head, he has a very heightened sense of importance of how many people he's at. Now, he's killed more than 3 because you see heads and stuff in the freezer if they're actually there. But again, just a very heightened sense of importance of himself. And he calls his lawyer, and we don't hear the lawyer say anything, and because it's a voicemail, duh, I'm a dumbass. But anyway, so sorry, got lost in that. Just came to me that was a voicemail. But I'm with you, Brian. The scene at the table with him and Reese Witherspoon. One, Reese plays it so stoic in a way that I think it balances Christian Bale's, fidgety nature so well. Like, she just, again, because no one's actually listening to what Patrick Bateman says ever, she's not taking anything he's saying seriously, no matter how he's saying it. And he's losing his fucking mind on this table. And I love the way Reese Witherspoon plays that. It's so good. And Christian Bale is fantastic there. So again, This set of scenes has a lot of really great acting, from the threesome scene where, Chrissy is so uncomfortable, to all the stuff by Bale and then Reese Witherspoon. That's what I remember this set of scenes for, is the acting. I think it's really good.
Yeah, so we get the scene where he picks up the girl again, and he calls the call girl over. This scene is crazy too, because of this is Chrissy's second time being over, and so you're like, okay, this guy's just wanting to have sex with these hookers again, and do them in all kinds of ways, but he drugs them. It's like, okay, this is a little different. And then the scene where she's sliding out of bed and she sees the blood on the sheets, and he pops his head out from underneath the covers. Like, holy shit, that's a crazy scene, chaotic scene. She takes off running and she goes into all these rooms and sees all these bodies. How are these really there? Are these not? I don't know. I get what you're saying as well. Like, you're running down the hallway with a chainsaw. She was banging on these doors and screaming bloody murder. No pun intended. Maybe pun intended in that case. And no one comes to their doors. That seems a little unlikely, unless they too are like Patrick Bateman and they're consumed with their own world and oblivious to the world around them. Possible, I guess. Him dropping the chainsaw.
Hey, Dustin,
go ahead.
To be fair, though, in Mike's favorite horror movie, or one of his favorite, Laurie Strode knocked on houses and no one answered the door too. So
that's because no one was taking her seriously. So
no one's gonna.
Maybe it's the same.
It's
thing.
New York City. There's crackheads out there. No one's taking this woman seriously.
Oh yeah. I agree. I agree.
And him dropping the chainsaw down the stairwell is fucking awesome. Like, he's just like so meticulous, so calculated, and when he releases, and it hits her perfectly. And then the look on his face when he's laughing, like, ha ha, gotcha. That was an iconic look too, with blood all over his face. And then we get to the dinner with Patrick and what was her name, Elizabeth. My man is cold-blooded. You're not terribly important to me. Whew. The great prophet Future would be proud. I myself am proud. That's a toxic ass line, and I respect it. But the thing about this is Reese Witherspoon, she just didn't want to walk the line for Patrick Bateman. She thought their relationship was just like heaven, but she didn't know he had some cruel intentions. It's for the best that they broke up, though, so she didn't have to live in fear. 4.
Wow.
That's
Mic drop.
4 puns. Suck it.
I mean, she could have just went. She could have just went and lived in Sweet Home Alabama.
She should have. Anyway. Now,
I love Fear, by the way.
You say you love Fear? That's a good movie.
Yeah, we need to watch that. We need to do that one. Anyway, go ahead.
I agree. I thought about that when I was coming up with these puns. Anyway, now fast forward again, and we see him spiraling. He's killing everyone in sight. He's trying to put a cat in a fucking ATM. This is where it's like, okay, none of this shit's real, right? But then again, and this is where this right here is where I would have inserted a little bit more of that cat and mouse with Kimball. I would have liked there to have been just like one more thing that pushes him over the edge where he thinks, oh, fuck, they got me. Now I got to run. But instead he just like starts killing people just for the fuck of it. And then the cops are after him because he's been killing these people. When I wish that in his mind, it was all this was happening. All these people were out to get him because they know, but that's okay. We get to the office, and the scene, the helicopter outside, whether that was coincidental or the helicopter was looking for him, I think was a great touch because it just adds more ambiguity to the scene. The voicemail, he's like, I killed, I don't know, 20 people, maybe 40. So if you go back and count the bodies in this movie, I think there's 16 confirmed kills. Well, I say confirmed very loosely because we don't know how many of these are actually real based on what we're going to see in the next scene or whatever. But I loved everything about the dialogue except for him saying that he ate some of the brains and tried cooking them, because that just didn't seem consistent with Patrick Bateman. Like, he was so particular about his physique, his regimen, and everything, that eating people just seemed a little bit too extreme for me. But that's a small knock. Maybe I'm in the minority. Maybe I'm completely wrong on that. Maybe he was so far detached from reality that it's very plausible he would do that. But overall, it's a great monologue and a great set of scenes leading us up to our confusing as fuck ending.
All right, Patrick is showering and now gets dressed. He puts on a mask and goes inside an apartment and he looks in the closet where there's no women hanging. The woman asks if he's her 2 o'clock. He asks if this is Paul Allen's place. She says no, and she tricks him with a question. He says he wants to know what happened here, but she tells him to leave and don't come back. He uses the payphone now and pops pills. It's Gene. He says he needs help. He cries as she tells him Craig wants to have drinks with him at Harry's. He says he won't make it to the office as he goes psycho. She hangs up. She goes in his office and searches his drawers and finds his black book. Patrick makes it to Harry's and tells the guys he's not going anywhere without a reservation. He walks over to Harold and asks if he got his message. He says it was hilarious. He says his joke had a fatal flaw, and he calls him Jim Davis, and says Bateman is such a dork, a boring, spineless lightweight. He stops him again and says, I did it. I killed him. I'm Patrick Bateman. I chopped Allen's head off with an axe. The whole message was true. He stops him again. I'm Patrick Bateman. I'm not Davis. You're my lawyer. He tells him again he killed Paul Allen and he liked it. He says it's not funny and not possible because he had dinner with Paul Allen in London twice 10 days ago. He walks away from Patrick. Gene looks through Patrick's black book and sees disturbing artwork such as women being killed several ways. Patrick makes it back to the table as they all watch Ronald Reagan on TV give a speech. They ask about reservations and Patrick begins to laugh. I'm just a happy camper rocking and a rolling. Patrick says there are no more barriers to cross. My pain is constant and sharp, and I do not hope for a better world for anyone. I want my pain to be inflicted on others. Even after admitting this, there is no catharsis. My punishment continues to elude me, and I gain no deeper knowledge of myself. No new knowledge can be gained from my telling this confession. It means nothing as we zoom in on Christian, and the film ends. All right, Brian, what do you think of the ending?
Oh man, shit. I mean, what can you say about the ending? Obviously, it's left ambiguous for a reason. I mean, it's meant to get you talking. It's meant for you to take it multiple ways. Just to reinforce what Dustin said earlier, writer Brett Ellis said it's actually not meant to be a film because just the fact that it's in the medium of film immediately demands answers that you see with your eyes and create because what you're seeing, you create in your mind because of what you're seeing. So you're definitely influenced that way, unlike a book where you're creating this stuff with your mind. The fact that the real estate lady quizzes him and then basically tells him to leave, and the way she looks at him definitely insinuates that she possibly knows something and covers it up. Then of course you get the conversation with the attorney saying Paul Allen's 100% alive. So did he kill someone else with the mistaken identity, or was it even that all in his head? I kind of think, yeah, he was killing people, but like I said earlier, only really like the homeless people and the hookers, and a lot of them that was in his book, but of his drawings, but that we don't see here, and the murders of people that he knows and all of that stuff, in my opinion, was in his head that he just couldn't put himself to do. That's what he wanted to do to them. But that's just my interpretation of it. I definitely understand those who think it all did happen, and then someone like his dad is definitely helping cover it up. Like the real estate lady and the attorney are both in on it. I've heard that. I can see that way too. Hell, even if the dude did do it, that was a little tongue twister. It may as well not even have happened because, like we talked about earlier, Mike, it doesn't matter. Because he would need his coworkers and his people in his circle to acknowledge it.
To give a shit.
Right. To see him that way for it to even matter. Since wasn't that the whole point to begin with him anyway. The website, thetake.com, was actually quoted as saying, it doesn't matter because it's just meant to be a statement on Wall Street, the rich and that conformed culture. But I think that's selling it short, honestly, because I think personally, yes, it's a statement on that stuff like Fight Club is, but I think it's deeper than that as well. But again, it's just how you interpret it to begin with. I am sad that we didn't get a Sweet Home Alabama reunion with Reese and Josh Lucas with any scenes of them together. I mean, obviously the movie came out after this, but just watching this in retrospect, I would have enjoyed it. So anyway, that's all I had.
No one had a baby in a bar in this movie.
No, they didn't.
No one had a baby in a bar.
Nico doesn't get that.
I could not work in a Legally Blonde joke either, but also an elite film with Reese Witherspoon. Anyway, absolutely. Okay, so this ending, Brian, you kind of said everything that I have here, but just to piggyback off you a little bit, to me, this ending being so ambiguous doesn't. You said it that it sells it short. I don't disagree with that, but what I will say is I do think it. I kind of feel the same way, is that it doesn't really matter that much because of what the movie is actually trying to say, which is, again, commenting on Wall Street and all that stuff, that big 80s time. That's what this movie is trying to comment on, is that these guys are so in their own world. They can get away with whatever. They do whatever they want. They say whatever they want, blah, 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 blah. That's the overall message of the movie. Now, when you break down what we've already talked about, which what happened, what didn't happen, I still am on a little bit of a split where I think it's 60-40-ish around that area, where I think he definitely killed some people, but I just don't think he's the killer that he thinks he is in his own mind. Brian, that's a good theory that I read actually this morning. Thank you, Reddit, where there's people involved in covering up his stuff.
Yeah.
He goes back to Paul Allen's apartment. It's just completely white like his. And so he's flabbergasted by that. He can't quite wrap his head around it. It's almost like he has him getting away with it and no one acknowledging what he's done makes him less happy than him not getting away with it. Like, if that makes any sense. Now, clearly, the sadness that he shows in the scene prior to this with the lawyer is not sadness that he killed people. It's sadness that he couldn't get away with it, or he just had to tell. Like, it's not the acts themselves. It's that either A, no one's paying attention to me, or B, I'm not going to get away with it, one or the other. And so I can't, he toes that line so well. And even in this set of scenes, man, like that 15 seconds with him in the apartment or the real estate agent is some of the more intense stuff in the scene, as far as the way they use the score there and they're kind of talking to each other. I love that little, I don't want any trouble, just leave. Like that whole thing, love that. I think it's really good. Now, the ending monologue, I think, is a little blah. It's whatever, but still, I'm kind of in the thought of it doesn't necessarily matter what happened and what didn't happen, because the movie's not really about that. But if you want to get into that, I do think it's about a 60-40 split of what really took place. Clearly, he has some serious issues. If you are in the mindset of none of it happened, I completely understand. And if you're in the mindset of all of it happened, I also completely understand. An ambiguous ending, but I don't think that drags the movie down at all. I think it works, and I'm a really big fan.
Yeah, so the first time I watched this movie, the way I thought of it was, okay, he's walking in. First of all, I can't believe my man, after he made it out of that office building with the helicopter outside, I can't believe Patrick Bateman just didn't hop to 310 to Yuma. You know what I'm saying? Brian, don't look at me like that. That's a solid one. The apartment being clean, though.
That was a good one.
Thank you.
That was actually good.
But really, with the apartment being clean, the first time I watched this, what I thought was, okay, so did his attorney get in with this realtor, and are they covering it up for him? Like, that's where my mind went. I thought that these people are working together, and especially when she's like, don't make trouble. Because that's like, okay, she knows something.
Right.
Maybe Paul Allen's fucking with him. You could say he's a Joker.
He wasn't in Joker. He was just the Joker, so that's kind of weird.
Oh,
well, actually, he wasn't the Joker. He fought the Joker. Anyway, I'll allow it.
Come on, we all know the reference.
Paul Allen, though, was the Joker. So
yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. Okay. Anyway,
I'm right in a bunch of ways. I don't even know comic book shit. So yeah, fuck off.
When she said "don't make trouble," it's like, okay, she knows something. She's trying to give him hints without flat out saying, "I know that you're a murderer. Get the fuck out of here." That's how I took it. And then, especially when he gets to the restaurant, he sees his attorney Harold, which, by the way, is played by. We've seen him before. He was in the movie It. He was Mr. Marsh, and then also, I was looking up him because I was like, man, he looks so familiar. I forgot all about this. He was in one of my favorite miniseries or series that I've ever seen, ESPN's Playmakers, that came out 2003. elite show about a fictional football league that the NFL made ESPN cancel because it was too real. Anyway, shout out to Stephen Bogart. He was the attorney Harold here. He makes you think it too. Did he cover it up? Because he's like, no. But then he confuses who Patrick Bateman is, so that confuses you. You're like, well, no, he just doesn't know who the fuck he's talking to. But then he says, when he told him Paul Allen is alive, I ate dinner with him in London or wherever it was. You could take that a couple ways. Either he really is alive, or he's telling you, hey, idiot, shut the fuck up. I told Kimball that I ate with him to cover your tracks. You're good. And so it really, kind of confused Patrick Bateman. And we get the scene where he's sitting there and you get the closing monologue. The majority of the dialogue from this movie is verbatim from the book. And so that's why I really appreciate over the back of his head, you get over his shoulder, you get a sign on the wall that says, this is not an exit, because that's the actual last words of the book. And so it's really cool that they put that note in there. The only thing that I would have done differently is muddy the fuck out of this ending even more. If you're going to confuse us this much about what happened, what didn't happen, the last thing that I wanted to see as Bateman is sitting in that chair sweating and thinking about what the hell's going on, I wish Kimball would have walked in and like the last scene be Kimball walking through the door of this bar or this restaurant with a look like he might be there to arrest someone. And then it goes back to Bateman and we fade to black. Just confuse the fuck out of us even more. But other than that, I enjoy the ending, but it is obviously the least favorite set of scenes in the movie just because of how confused it leaves you. But it's not confusing enough to damage my opinion of the movie overall.
All right. Any more final thoughts before we knock out these questions and comments from social media?
No.
All right. Let's start off with Twitter. Shan, big time fan of the show. She said, I love this movie. And then she asked, have any of you guys read the book? There's a lot more detail into his motivation behind his kills. And given that, do you prefer to know his motivations or have it more left for interpretation like in the movie? I have not read the book. I will throw that out there.
I haven't read the book either as far as motivation goes. With certain killers, I like no motivation because I think that's a little creepier. Obviously, we talked about it with Michael Myers all the time. Mm-hmm. But in this situation, because he's kind of a more realistic serial killer, I would like to know a little bit more about what makes him tick. I think that'd be interesting. And then I looked today on Audible. I found the audio version, and I have credits, so I'll be downloading the audio version of this. I just don't have time to sit and read it, but I will at least know what the book is by the end of the month.
Yeah, I'd like to know what a book is, man. I can't read. But no, I'm just kidding. I haven't read the book either. I actually do enjoy reading. I just typically read biographies and stuff, or books written by
I'm more of a
celebrities.
I'm more of a nonfiction guy myself.
Yeah, exactly. But that being said, I have been interested in reading this book since I saw the movie. I just haven't never got around to it. Maybe I will, maybe I won't. What's it to you? But as far as my killers having motivation, I think that in this movie, I love it just the way it is, because being so consumed with the world that you're in and so overtaken by materialism can cause you to go insane. And a lot of, serial killers, they don't really have a motivation or a motive. It's just sociopathic tendencies, which Patrick Bateman clearly had. So I'm okay with the lack of motive, I guess, in this killer story.
Yeah, I haven't read the book, but like I said, I really would love to. And I'm with Mike on this one. I really would like to actually, get a little bit more in depth that only the book can really give you.
Yeah, I think I contradict myself, but I like the way the movie is, but I would like to know more. I don't want to know his true motivation. I just want to know, like what Mike said, I want to know what makes his mind tick and how he thinks and processes things. I would like to know that.
Well, I mean, basically that's what the whole movie is, like his perspective and like what he's thinking and narrating. So, I mean, that can only elaborate on that, in my opinion.
Well, the whole book is that. I mean, it's 400 pages of that. So if that's what makes you, I mean, I did research on the book. I just haven't read it. But I do know that the whole book is basically 400 pages of his narration. So,
all right, my friend Nick Mathis, he commented on our Facebook post. He asked, "Did you guys pick up on the satire in the film?"
The whole damn movie, buddy.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like Dustin said, this movie is hilarious, and in some scenes it shouldn't be hilarious, but it's so funny.
Dude, he's dancing to Huey Lewis in the news while he kills someone. It's fucking hilarious.
Dude, I love whenever he's telling Evelyn when he's breaking up with her. First off, I'd like you to stop making a scene. That is hilarious to me.
Oh, absolutely.
All right, let's jump to our Instagram questions. Jessie Lane, she commented, "I've only seen this one time and had to walk away from the TV several times, but ended up disappointed with the movie. I was so lost, but I think when I listen to this episode, appreciate you listening, I'm going to give it another try. Full attention.
Definitely do that.
Hopefully, after hearing what you guys have to say about it and rewatching, I'll feel better about it. I think you will.
Yeah, for sure.
I think so, personally.
Well, yeah, because we spoiled the whole movie. You got to watch the movie before you listen to us. And, of course, you're going to be lost if you keep walking away from the TV, silly. Sit down and watch it. It's a good movie.
Also, go into the... God, I think there's a lot of people that felt that way just because it gets kind of lumped in with the horror genre. It's not a slasher movie, everyone. So don't go in with that mindset, and I think you'll be rewarded handsomely.
Alex1 commented, "What are some of your deep thoughts on Phil Collins, Huey Lewis, and Whitney Houston?"
Whitney Houston's the GOAT.
I love all of them. Wow, I don't really love Huey Lewis in the News, but I do love that song.
Huey Lewis provided the theme song to one of the greatest movies of all time.
Yes.
Whitney Houston is the GOAT. Phil Collins produced probably the greatest soundtrack to any Disney movie of all time. The Tarzan soundtrack's phenomenal.
Absolutely,
so
buddy.
There you go, 3 GOATs.
He also has "In the Air Tonight" and "I Don't Care Anymore." It's a great song. Also, just so we're clear, Huey Lewis sings that song with Gwyneth Paltrow in duets, and it's fucking magical. Anyway,
dude, you've seen duets?
Damn right, I've seen duets.
No one has seen that movie. That movie is so good.
And Huey Lewis does the "Baby, Let's Cruise."
Yeah, he does.
My man.
They're gonna sue us just for you singing that little part of it. That's
Missy Hutchison Wall. She commented, "There is one particular scene." She's still in your bit, Mike. "There's one particular scene in this movie where, despite the whole Psycho thing, Patrick Bateman can call me sometime." She said, "Seriously, great pick. Look forward to this episode."
I understand it. My man has a muscly ass. He does. He's got a muscly ass.
Did you see that pelvic thrust he was giving?
He's got some chiseled glutes. My man's got some chiseled glutes. I will say it.
Hey, pause on myself.
Oh,
Heather P91 said, "Ooh, good one." See, doesn't it? The people like your pick.
Yeah.
And then Aldrich Films commented, "We got 2 more questions, but I want to save those for because they're really good. One of my personal favorites. I was probably returning videotapes." Yes. And then he says, "I honestly still question the ending. I own and have watched this movie many times, and I still wonder." LOL.
Same.
So does everyone else.
Everyone does. Jayla Cade from the Gore Girls podcast, she commented, "What is your favorite scene and least favorite scene?" I'll go first real quick. My favorite scene, I'm kind of torn, but I'm going to go with him killing Paul Allen, which is a spoiler for the review, the rating. My least favorite, killing the hobo. I felt bad for the hobo or the homeless guy.
Yeah.
I'll say my least favorite is probably the ending just because of how confused it made everyone to this day. But my favorite, man, I don't know. That opening dialogue is so great with him doing his morning regimen and the monologue we get. That's probably my favorite scene. So it's kind of funny.
That's a great.
My favorite's the opening.
Great scene.
My least favorite's the ending. But overall, I love the movie. It's not downhill from the
No, my favorite is the phone call to the lawyer, just because of how frantic he is and how it's shot, and I love the delivery that Bale gives. But I also love the opening. I think it's great too. My least favorite is the same as Nico, is killing the hobo, because I don't think killing the dog is necessary, asshole.
My favorite, I would say, weirdly, I think is the dinner conversation or the lunch conversation with Reese Witherspoon. I don't know, just because of how frantic Bale is, and how at the end he ends it with the whole, like he's "I'm just leaving," and then he's like, "to return videotapes," and like it's just like, all right, I'm leaving. Like, I don't know, it's just the way he delivers that line. I fucking love it so much. And my least favorite is probably the end of the hooker threesome scene. I think whenever like it's shit's not fun anymore, and like he did some crazy shit, and the fact that it doesn't show it and that your mind kind of connects crazy dots or what the fuck could he have done with
I agree with
a
that.
hanger, and like that's just to me really fucked up, and I was like, oh, I don't know, it just made me feel some type of way.
Yeah.
All right, here's the last question. This is a really good one. Miss Bell Bones commented, might be a cool question to answer. Do you connect with Patrick's character in any way? Is there any wisdom you can glean from his psychotic musings?
Well,
This is a deep one.
I too look in the mirror sometimes when I'm. Oh, never mind.
When you're peeling your face stuff off.
Yeah.
I don't think that's what he meant, pal. I think he meant when he's doing Nico's pelvic thrust. Apparently.
Pause.
My answer off the top of my head is no, but also I'm very regimented with what I do, my workout plan, my meal plan, and the way I kind of set my days up Monday through Friday are kind of regimented in that way. So I guess maybe, but I feel like that's just how I function better. But I also don't do sit-ups to Texas Chainsaw Massacre, even though I made the joke earlier.
Oh.
And I also do not kill people on the side.
Oh, you don't? That's weird.
Well,
not yet.
You work out listening to podcasts, so
I do.
Tomato.
Sometimes I do, and sometimes I listen to really shitty Metallica songs like Saint Anger. Man, I'm all over the place.
Yeah, I think the answer for me is yes, but I think that to an extent, the majority of everybody gets in these monotonous routines where they can't recognize themselves anymore, and they get in, like everybody gets in a quote unquote rut. Now, it's some people snap and take it too far. Some people suffer, deal with it different ways. And but yeah, I think that there's a little bit of it in everybody.
Yeah, I mean, I think also, Brian, I think everyone's guilty of, it may be to a very minuscule extent, but everyone is guilty of kind of having envy of your coworkers and your peers a little bit, or trying to compete with your peers, and you want to keep up.
Right.
So I think
up with the Joneses,
with the Joneses and anyone else as well,
and the Nikos and the Chins.
Yeah.
Oh, brother.
I mean, just for instance, every time that we gather, I look at something that you three gentlemen have, and I'm like, damn, I wish I had that because I can't afford it. But
I'll have to stop sending you those pictures of me working out. Sorry.
But no, and I also can say that I've been as cold-hearted to women at times as he has. I would never do that now. My girlfriend doesn't listen to the show though, so I don't have to lie. But the line "you're not terribly important to me," I have quoted this to a girl. So yeah, I can relate a little bit. I've just never murdered anyone or really thought it through in my head to the extent that he has.
I got a quote I want to read. Cause like I said, I watched several YouTube videos, and I thought this was really good. It was from Screen Prism, and the narrator was Susanna B. McCullough. And in quote, she said, "This is how they ended the video. Like Patrick Bateman, we may be trapped, craving the approval of others and denying ourselves the ability to distinguish fantasies from realities." I think that's something that all of us go through. Like, like you said, it's just life becomes mundane. You compete with the people you work with. You get stuck in monotonous routines every day. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think we all have some Patrick Bateman tendencies to us. We just don't go off the rocker. All right, here's what I'm looking forward to the most: the favorite kill, least favorite kill, and the rating. Who wants to go first tonight?
Did we do fun?
I'll do it.
Do fun facts.
Oh shoot!
Yeah, we did fun facts.
We did.
Did we not do fun facts? No, we didn't do fun facts. Go ahead.
I just got one, and I just want to say it just so our guy...
I've only got a couple, too.
Yeah, I just want to give our guy Sean Irwin a little shout-out on this fun fact. Christian Bale actually used Nicolas Cage's performance in Vampire's Kiss from 1988 as the inspiration for Patrick Bateman, as the two characters are strikingly similar. So there you go, Sean. Nick Cage still sucks, but at least he inspired this greatness of a movie.
All right, I'll go ahead and I'm sorry, I so wrapped up in all the social media questions, forgot fun facts. I don't know if we said this, but during the shooting of the film, Christian Bale spoke in an American accent, all set at all times. At the rap party, when he began to speak in his native Welsh accent, many of the crew thought he was speaking that way as an accent for another film. They had thought he was American throughout the entire shoot. I thought that was pretty cool. I'm not going to say this one.
Welsh.
I'm not going to say this one because I
time.
think Mike's going to touch on this about the single biggest cost of the budget.
Yeah.
I'll let him have that one.
You can go ahead and tell it.
Okay. The single biggest cost of the film was purchasing the rights to various songs used throughout the movie. To block the three-way sex scene with two prostitutes, co-writer and director Mary Herron and Christian Bale watched X-rated tapes. In her commentary, Herron says Bale made stick figure drawings of the positions he thought would work best. Like, this movie's hilarious, and that's what makes it that way. I don't know if I know Brian touched on the one about the sock, but I don't think he said this one. In the DVD commentary, co-writer and director Mary Herron says that during the first shower scene with Patrick Bateman, all of the women on set gathered around to watch Christian Bale wash himself. And the last one I have is just having such faith in the film. Christian Bale turned down other film offers and auditions for 9 months in the hopes of winning back the part of Patrick Bateman. His waiting ultimately paid off.
Only have a few if you want. The name Bateman is derived from the main character of the Psycho film franchise, Norman Bates, of course.
Yeah.
Reese Witherspoon would later present Christian Bale with his first Academy Award in 2011 for his role in The Fighter. Great film. And,
yes, it is.
The only scene that Patrick Bateman isn't featured in is the scene where Gene is looking through his daily planner book at the end of the film. And there are several deleted scenes that never made it into the final cut of the film. One of them, I'm not going to read them all, but one of them is Kimball crossing paths with Patrick at a club and having a brief conversation, which made it played in to what you really wanted, Dustin, was a little bit more of a cat and mouse thing.
Yeah. So this movie was made for a cool $7 million. The budget was a lot higher when Leo DiCaprio and all those guys were signed on. The budget got dropped when the director got the casting that she actually wanted, which was Christian Bale. I think the low budget kind of worked to this movie's favor a little bit. Kind of could have gotten carried away with a big budget, in my opinion. But it made $34.3 million, which unfortunately caused Lionsgate to slap a shitty sequel together a couple years later, which Dustin already mentioned. I haven't seen it. I'm just going to assume it's shitty since yesterday. Yesterday was the first time I'd ever heard about it. So,
yeah.
And before we jump into the favorite kill, least favorite kill, with Christian Bale being the lead, the studio requested two other big stars. That's why Reese Witherspoon and William Dafoe was in the movie, just to bring in that box office power. All right, so now we've done fun facts. Sorry, I forgot all about that. Let's jump into the favorite kill, least favorite kill, in the ratings. Anybody want to go first? Mike, do you want to go first?
I'll go first.
I'll go after you. I'll go after you, Mike.
Okay. My favorite kill is again, we don't really see any of them, but I think my favorite kill is probably Paul Allen, just because the scene is hilarious and it's great, and there's so much. It's such a fun kill, for lack of a better term. To say a kill is fun is kind of weird out of context, but I think it's really fun. And my least favorite kill is the fucking dog, which I already ranted on. Fuck that. Damn it, man. Anyway, especially when you hear the squeals, it's just very sad. It's a very sad thing. Okay, so I don't think I had a lot of negatives to say about this movie. Going through my notes and listening to you guys, man, there just wasn't a whole lot of negatives outside of a cup. This is one. Now, look, do I want this movie to be 2.5 hours? No, because I don't really want any movie to be 2.5 hours. But could this movie have been a nice round of 2 hours? I think so. I think it would have let the movie breathe a little bit. You could have got a little more character development inside the mind of Patrick Bateman. But outside of that, man, I just don't have very many negatives about this movie. I think it's really, really good. It's a great character study. It kind of shows side effects of mental health. It toes the line of being feminist and misogynistic, which is very hard to do. I think there's a lot to say here. It talks about classism. It talks about yuppie culture in the 80s, Wall Street, all that stuff. It says a lot, which I love when a movie can do that and still entertain me without throwing it in my face. It's still a good movie, even if you took all of that away. And so for that reason, I gave this movie a 9.5.
God damn.
All right, I'll go next. My favorite kill, I agree with you, Paul Allen. I was very torn, though, with the chainsaw kill, because they're both very similar to me. You get these funny scenes that shouldn't be funny with great kills. And I almost chose a chainsaw kill just because I thought, it was hilarious when he's screaming at her and has the bloody face. And I love when she kicks him in the face and he's like, not the face. I love that part.
Yeah.
But I chose Paul Allen just because the line where he's talking about now try to get a reservation at Dorsia, that just put it over the top. That was hilarious to me. Least favorite kill, I chose the hobo or the homeless man, whatever you want to call him, just because it was so cold-blooded. I mean, I guess you want that in a villain, but that guy was just he just wanted to live another night, It was sad. I usually write summaries, but I really didn't know what to write other than I just think this is a great movie with I won't say a bad ending, just a confusing ending. All the actors did a great job. And y'all brought up the sequel, which I haven't seen either. If you're not going to make another sequel to me to like kind of expand on it, I would like a more definite ending. So I would like, and y'all may hate this idea, but I would like kind of an ending where he's either caught, kind of like maybe Oculus, where he's driven off in a police car, or maybe you get like a Saw kind of ending where you flash back in the movie and like, or like in The Machinist when you flash back and you're like, he wasn't actually doing this or he was doing this. I would like just a more tight knit ending, but I still gave the movie a 9. I literally only docked 1 point because of the ending, just being too open ended.
Nico wanted Paul Allen to slam the door and go, "Game over."
Well, I love the like just the dive into his psyche. It's like he gives a speech about equal rights and for women and racism, but then he kills women and he kills the black man and
the homeless man.
And, he's a total contradiction of himself. And I think Patrick Bateman is. I kind of rated this movie like The Shining. I gave it the exact same rating, but you need to go into this movie kind of like The Shining and not a slasher.
Yeah.
You want me to go ahead and go, Dustin, since you picked it, or you want to go right now?
Go.
All right. Well, mine's short and sweet. Actually, my least favorite kill was Paul Allen because, to my opinion, like for Paul Allen to be the main catalyst to kickstart this entire thing, I just wish they would have shown the kill or at least a little bit more of it. My favorite kill, I didn't pick the chainsaw kill because I honestly thought that y'all would pick the chainsaw kill. I do like the chainsaw kill. I think it's pretty cool. But honestly, the night guard, when he asks him to sign in, and calls him Mr. Smith, by the way, I noticed. But it's just such a great realistic gunshot to the head. The blood splatter, I don't know. The way it's just, I thought that was really cool. I loved it. So that's what I picked. And as far as my rating, I told in my opening kind of how I felt about this movie. I don't dislike it at all. I think it's great. It falls a little flat to me. And I don't mind the ambiguity. I just don't think it's, I don't know. I don't think you needed it in this movie, So I actually gave it a 7.5.
Okay.
Shit, that's good.
Yeah.
It's a good movie.
So
it's a good movie. I don't hate it. So it's
for my favorite kill, I went with let me pull it back up here. My favorite kill, I went with Paul Allen as well. It's just because it's an iconic shot of him with the raincoat on and the blood splatter on the face. I know this is an audio platform and you can't see what I can see, but Nico's shirt has his face from that scene on it. It's just like you said, it's the one that jump started his madness, I guess, was jealous of Paul Allen and he kills him. So I would have liked to have seen more blood, like I said, in that white room, more shots of the axe to the face. We didn't even get to see, that was a beautiful chrome axe. We didn't even get to see the murder weapon covered in blood. I think that would have made it even better. But
right.
Least favorite kill was, for all the craziness of that chaotic last scene, there's one that pisses me off. So we get the gunshot to the desk clerk. That was great. We get the bellhop getting out the elevator. He swings all the way through the revolving door and shoots him, kills him. That was awesome. But he shot a fucking cop car and it blew up. What? I guess that's the difference in a Ford versus Ferrari. But that Ford just blew up. What, Brian? What? Anyway. That was a good one. Come on.
You hit on all the other ones. you hit on every other pun tonight. Except
that was a good one. Ferrari wouldn't blow up like that's what I'm saying. And that cop died because he's a Ford, and now he's found on road dead like a Ford. As far as the movie itself, I I really like this movie. Like I said, I don't have much negative about it either, other than the few things I've tweaked here and there. This movie is. It's funny you mentioned The Shining, Nico, because his descent into madness is very much like Jack's descent into madness in The Shining. The difference is The Shining got more time to tell the story. It's a longer movie. Kubrick is a god, and so we didn't really get enough time for Bateman's story to be told as to why he's progressing into this. So that's the only reason why it got a 9 instead of higher. So I went with a 9. That gives our composite score at 8.75.
What's IMDb's?
Full of shit.
Wait, what? No, I mean, what
Whoa,
was it?
hold on now. When IMDb backs up your claim, it's a good source.
Oh, what the hell do they know? It's a 7.6 on IMDb.
Oh, well, what
Okay,
did,
well,
wait,
that's
what,
right
where
around
did I
Brian's
get it?
rating.
Where did I get it? Oh, okay. Wow, man.
Yeah, if we're going by Dustin's logic, it's called a comedy crime drama. So it's not even horror. If you go by how Dustin rates
That's what I'm
Jaws
saying.
and everything else.
Jaws is an action movie. It ain't no horror movie.
Well, then this is a crime comedy
I
drama.
said that.
How many
I told
people?
y'all.
Just curious. How many people voted on that IMDb ranking? So it's
Too damn many.
hundreds of thousands of people, maybe.
500,924.
He's trying to make a
Oh, that's
he's
crazy.
trying to make a Cloverfield joke.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Hey, but
Brian,
and also I do want to say
25% of the show liked Cloverfield.
Hey, I admit
75%
it.
didn't.
Hey, I was in the minority. I admitted we were in the minority on Cloverfield.
uh,
I did. That movie is beloved.
if it makes you feel any better, Brian, I would rather watch Cloverfield on loop. Hell, I'd rather even watch House of Wax on loop for a month straight than ever watch American Psycho 2 one more time in my life. So there you go.
Why are you disrespecting
I'd
House
rather-
of Wax? That's a great movie.
What
No,
about
it's
The
not.
Descent?
No, that movie sucks. Whoa,
Well, I'd rather watch The
The
Descent.
The
Hell,
Descent.
I'd even rather watch Terrifier. There, I got all
I
three
would rather-
shitty movies.
Wow,
I tell you right now, I'd rather watch Cloverfield over any of those fucking Hellraiser movies again. Anyway,
you should because it's fucking great. Anyway, let's go.
Let's wrap this
Oh, let me
up.
announce the blood donors. Let's get out of here. This is getting personal again. Feelings might get hurt.
never.
Our camp level reoccurring is Clayton J, Nina, Michelle Mirza, Andrew Ferguson, and the Horror Movie Crew podcast. Thank you guys so much. The camp counselor reoccurring is Hunter Nelson, Karen, Shan Petrusevich, and Dennis Kennedy. Our legendary blood donors we still have to do film reviews on are Miss Joe Larson and Missy Wall, who apparently has a crush on Patrick Bateman and stole Mike's line tonight.
I don't blame her. Muscly ass.
All right, let's close this episode out. Brian, announce your pick next week.
Pause.
What happened?
I don't know my fucking pick next week. Is this the new?
It's
the
new
one-
night. It's new nightmare, pal.
I didn't even know it was my pick next week, so
Yeah,
threw
it's-
me off there a little bit.
It's new nightmare.
All right. All right. So, friend of the show, Robert England. Friend of the show, Heather Langenkamp. Friend of the show, Jesus Garcia. All back for Wes Craven's New Nightmare.
Let's
favorite.
go.
My favorite of the franchise.
Mine too, I think.
I'm ready to do it.
Hell yeah.
I might be alone next week. Oh,
Yeah,
God.
you're definitely alone next week, pal.
You're an island boy? All alone? On an island?
I don't.
You're out there. You're out there on
I had
Ellis
no
Island,
idea,
like the
I had
author
no
of the
idea
book.
what island boy joke means.
Stupid.
Anywho, no, probably is. Anywho, Dustin, great pick for a change.
I told y'all, I'm only picking
Sorry.
fingers from now on. Tired of getting
You
shit
pick on
on.
all my
Oh, here
shit.
we
You
go.
pick on all my movies. I'm picking on yours from now on.
Impossible. I'm
No,
getting
for real though.
classics only.
For real though, American Psycho, I loved it. Looking forward to next week, Wes Craven's New Nightmare. I know Brian, this is
Yes.
his favorite. I know we've been
I
looking
love it.
forward to. Heck, I think this was on our initial list from the get go. So
Yep.
I'm happy we'll be taking it on. We've got a lot of friends of the show in that movie, so I'm excited to
I can't
take it
believe
on
it's
next week.
taken this over 2 years to get to that film. That blows my mind. Because that
Brother.
was like because that was supposed to be like episode 5.
There's a lot of movies that we still haven't done,
Oh yeah, I know.
but great time tonight reviewing this movie. Hope you guys enjoyed our 31 on 31 Halloween Kills. We put out a lot of content the past few weeks. Y'all have a good one. Thank you for supporting us. Just want to remind everybody.